We have the entire Galaxy S23 series of smartphones with us today, but for today's video, we are only gonna focus on the small S23 because I think it deserves a lot more love, partly because of its small form factor. As you all know, small flagship smartphones are a dying breed, but also because Samsung manages to spice up the deal with this phone to the point that it surprised me in multiple different occasions. As usual, everything is timestamped below, so let's begin. We'll start off with the biggest highlight of the Galaxy S23, which is the performance. The phone is also powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, just like the S23 Plus and the Ultra. Now, from our gaming test, we say that the FPS is mostly identical with the Ultra, but Samsung can't cheat physics, and because the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is gonna be a hot chip, and you still need to cool it down somehow, some way. So how did they do it? Well, there are multiple tricks up their sleeves actually. So we're using Genshin Impact as the example here, and the maximum render resolution is actually lower at 1755 by 810 pixels. It's not that much lower compared to the Ultra, but actually doing some quick math, we can find out that the render resolution is only 12.622% lower than the Ultra. So by lowering the render resolution, the S23 is able to maintain an FPS number that is similar to the Ultra while also keeping the temperature in check. Remember, a smaller phone means that it has a smaller surface area to dissipate heat away from the phone, and I'm actually impressed that this phone didn't actually reach anywhere near 45 degrees Celsius on the surface. That's good engineering in Samsung's part. You might argue that the lowered render resolution makes the game look ugly, and to that I think we need to look at the bigger picture. By doing some quick math yet again, we can calculate that the pixel per inch of each of the phone in the Galaxy S23 series and also the game's pixel per inch of the render resolution, and then when we divide the two numbers together, we can get a result which I will just call it as the sharpness coefficient. This is where we can see that out of all the three phones, the S23 is only behind the Ultra in terms of its sharpness value. S23 Plus is actually the least sharp, which makes sense since it has the same 1080p resolution but at a much larger 6.6-inch screen. But ultimately, does this actually matter? I don't think so. They all look superbly good in games anyway, so yeah, the reason why that I'm showing you this is partly because I just want to do some math. Oh, quick highlight here, the Galaxy S23 also have the bypass battery feature. We just have to perform some ritual to make the option appear, which I still don't understand why, so if you want to perform the ritual yourself, the steps are as shown in the video at the top right corner there. Then it is time to talk about the display. I think this is the S23's double-edged sword, because it's either you're going to like this small display or you don't. This flat 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X screen has 120Hz refresh rate and a maximum resolution of 2340 by 1080 pixels and has a pixel per inch value of about 422, and that is actually very high. One notable highlight this generation though is the screen's brightness. Samsung claims that the S23 series all have the same peak brightness of 1750 nits, and is that true? Well, let's take a step back. If we turn on manual brightness and crank up the brightness all the way to the highest, we can get about 460 nits of brightness. Then once we turn on extra bright, then the maximum brightness is at around 750 nits, which is in line with what we have previously. Like what we mentioned before, while playing a wide HDR video, we can make the screen go even brighter, and we recorded about 1200 nits, which is the same as the Ultra. Then the color accuracy test. Tested at 100 nits of brightness, the screen covers about 100% for both sRGB and DCI-P3 color gamuts, while covering about 93.98% of Adobe RGB. This is the highest that we've seen so far actually. The maximum delta E is relatively high at 3.1111, but the average delta E is very low. Either way, this is a magnificent display for such a small device. As for the design, we already know how this story goes. The S23 all got a redesign and is now using a more elegant design with a more minimalistic look with individual protruding circles for each camera. I personally like this design a lot more actually. The back panel is also in a matte finish and it feels smooth to the touch, but for the Phantom Black color though, the Samsung logo is a lot more apparent compared to other colors. And yes, there are two more exclusive colors that are available only on Samsung.com. So we have the graphite and lime colors available there. Okay, the cameras. The specs for all of the cameras are as shown on the screen right now, and it might look like the same as the S22 from last year, but there are some notable changes here and there, especially when it comes to the videography, which we will get into later. So looking at the pictures taken, I would say that it looks good outdoors even though they are during gloomy days. No surprise here since this is a flagship smartphone anyway. Indoor shots do look good as well, and we already expected that. Then comes night shots. I walked around and took these shots at night, and I realized that the lens still have that crazy streak when taking a night shot with lamppost in the shot. But if we ignore that, then yeah, the night shots on the Galaxy S23 do look good as well. But the true challenge is when I took the phone to this restaurant. It was so dark that I can't even see most of the things around me, and the phone managed to capture quite a lot of good pictures in the dark too. Even my food here looks very good. Then comes the zoom shots. While in a super dark restaurant, I also decided to do some zoom night shots because why not? And yeah, I mean some of the text are intelligible, but usually it does take a lot of guesswork to really know what's written there. Daylight zoom shots are the same too. If we use it at 10 times zoom, then we can somehow read the sign that says show unit open daily, but at 30 times zoom, the image and the text becomes less intelligible. So overall, the cameras are great, but the digital zoom shots is a bit spotty. Oh, the selfie cameras. It is now using a 12 megapixel sensor, and it still has the same autofocusing lens as before, so we can take sharp selfies like this. Moreover, it can also capture 4K 60fps selfie videos too, so your TikTok videos and whatever can look the best it possibly can. And as for the video capabilities, in general, all phones within the S23 series can record up to 8K 30fps or 4K 60fps, and we did a very simple video test for you guys during the day here, and it actually looks good. So let's talk about the battery life. The S23 did get a larger battery over its predecessor, totaling to 3900 mAh. Yes, it does not sound like much, and yes, I was also worried about the battery life. However, using our usual PC Mark battery life tests at 100 nits of brightness, we can see that the battery life got a massive increment over the S22, partly thanks to the new, more efficient chipset. The jump is from about 9.5 hours to 13 hours, and that is a very significant boost, and this battery life result is also almost identical to the S23 Ultra. The charging speed is also the same as last year, so this phone maxed out at 25 watts of charging speed, and we also did the same test using our same charger, the Ugreen 100 watts USB PD charger that we have, and it charged from 15% to completion in about an hour. The temperature did touch 40 degrees Celsius, but it didn't stay there too long, and it also does the temperature control thing where the charging speed ramps up and down in response to the temperature. Then the software, One UI 5.1. After spending more time with the Galaxy S23 series, I realized that the animations are now super smooth and everything is just much more responsive overall. And that is on top of everything mentioned in the Galaxy S23 Ultra review. You can watch it at the top right corner there. What's new here is actually that you can tap and hold whatever subject in a picture that you've taken, and then you can lift it off directly. This feature is 100% copied from iOS 16, but I still want to question its usefulness. Also, quick correction part on the bloatware that we mentioned. We do have to tap on the little eye icon to grant it more permission so that we can see the real system app size, and on the 128 gigs version of the S23, it takes out about 27.62 gigabytes. And I have also installed quite a lot of things already, so the system app might not be reflected onto your unit when you have it. Again, I believe that there are a lot of unnecessary things preloaded into the phone, but I also believe that labeling all of them as bloatware is quite unfair because there are some useful features in there as well. Okay, so before we end, I want to quickly mention a few things. Firstly, the storage speed of the 128 gigs version of the S23 is very slow compared to the S23 Plus or the Ultra, but the RAM speed remains the same between all three devices. Second, the S23 also has a USB 3.0 port at the bottom, making it super fast to transfer files in and out of the phone. This is especially useful if you are recording 4K 60fps or 8K 30fps using this phone. Of course, the S23 still has Samsung DeX, so you can plug in an external monitor and start using it immediately. Also, it still has the IP68 rating too. So conclusion time. I gotta be straightforward here, I really love this phone. Some of us really just prefer a smaller phone, and Samsung managed to fix up a lot of problems and worries by extending the battery life significantly, packing in a very beautiful display, and the cameras are still gorgeous. Also, tiny flagship smartphones are a dying breed, and the Galaxy S23 is one of those tiny flagship phones that are actually made well and is readily available worldwide. So if you're looking for a tiny phone that has the best of everything, then there's just no argument that you should buy this phone. And that's the end of the Galaxy S23 review. Do subscribe because our next review is going to be the S23 Plus, and this phone is also interesting in some ways. So yeah, we'll see you there. If you have any questions regarding the small S23, do leave them down in the comment section below and we'll see you there.